a technical and economic look at Germany and Europe, as well as a strategic reorientation, by Kim. Europe is currently in a dangerous situation. Numerous data clearly show that Europe's economic power, Germany, is in a deep recession. Not least, the missed connection to the economic modern age are crucial for this. For the last 150 years, Germany has thrived and benefited greatly from globalization. In the 20th century, everything was mechanized, and Germany played a leading role in this. The combustion engine, industrial machines, and chemicals mostly came from Germany and brought a certain prosperity to the nation. But numerous wrong decisions have hit Germany hard and are about to break the nation's back. A few examples. Germany is a nation in which there are few large companies, but many small and medium-sized companies, so-called hidden champions. Numerous companies in the chemical industry are active in this area. Until a few years ago, the partnership with Russia paid off significantly. Cheap gas as a necessary component, and numerous chemical compounds and processes could be bought very cheaply via the Nord Stream gas pipeline. This worked well until the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. German politics was correspondingly more hesitant. On the one hand, they did not want to provoke a war with Russia because they were heavily dependent on Russian resources. But on the other hand, they did not want to scare away the great protector, the USA. As a NATO member and, so to speak, a close ally of the USA, not to forget, US nuclear missiles are stored in Germany, specifically at the US base in Ramstein, which was and is also a major customer for German products. They found themselves in a dilemma. And the longer the war lasted and the stronger it developed, the more difficult the situation became for Germany. After the blowing up of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, however, all hope was lost, and gas had to be bought elsewhere without further ado. In order to keep the industry alive, they switched to comparatively expensive LNG, which is now mainly supplied by the USA, thus making Germany dependent on the USA, compared to before, when Germany was dependent on Russia. Germany is thus not only militarily, but now also in terms of resources, at the mercy of the USA. Although Norway has expanded gas production and Saudi Arabia has also supplied LNG, demand is significantly higher than supply. The USA has replaced Russia for Germany's production. In addition to the chemical industry, Germany has also ignored technological change. There was a reason for this, but it was based on a false analysis. German cars sell well in the world. Although weaker now, they are still selling well. The German combustion engine is outstanding worldwide and has been perfected over decades. However, about 15 years ago, it became clear globally that e-cars are the future. However, this poses significant challenges for German car production. Instead of well-developed combustion engines, lithium is now needed to produce the batteries. However, the raw material lithium is hardly available in Europe. It is mainly found in China, globally approximately 60% of total production, Australia, and Chile. The import of lithium and the construction of battery factories should have started immediately. In contrast to Germany, numerous nations around the world have realized that battery factories are necessary for this. China, in particular, has created an entire industry with CATL, but the USA has also followed suit. Germany has not. Although a pact has been made with the Scandinavian countries, and an attempt is being made to set up an independent battery production with Northvolt, this is being done half-heartedly. The consequence, German politicians, instead of supporting electric production, they made a mea culpa, a somersault backwards. Above all, the FDP lobbied in Brussels to delay the ban on the combustion engine for a few more years, and to allow biodiesel, so-called e-fuels, as an alternative. Or to put it another way, they tried to do everything they could to avoid having to rely on electric cars. That was a fatal mistake. In the meantime, the realization has dawned that electric cars are the future, but the German automotive industry is lagging far behind due to serious strategic mistakes. But there is another problem: the lack of digitization. To put it simply, Germany is one of the most poorly digitized countries in the world. Full stop. Almost every developing country has better internet and better digital coverage than Germany. On the one hand, this is due to a poorly developed infrastructure, and on the other hand, to a strategically poorly aligned vision of the future. Firstly, the latter. Germany has taken little initiative to educate modern technology. They were proud of their engineers who designed large machines, but not so much of software and IT. To do that, they would have had to develop the infrastructure. The fact that Germany does not have its own IT industry, except for SAP, but the market capitalization compared to US companies is hardly worth mentioning, is particularly evident from the digitization of German cars. Volkswagen had tried to develop its own software for its cars in Germany. To do so, they invested €2 billion in the product. In short, an absolute failure. They wanted to be the German Tesla, but had to pack it in. There is a lack of software engineers, knowledge, know-how, and above all, data. Excessive German data protection makes it impossible to learn from data because of the particular attention paid to privacy rights to one's own data. But above all, the infrastructure is a major problem. To this day, Germany still does not have a dense fiber optic network. The expansion of fiber optics was decided upon as early as the 1980s, but former Chancellor Kohl preferred to rely on copper cables to spread his monopoly of opinion over all German TV sets. Helmut Kohl repealed the right, important, and forward-looking decision to expand fiber optics. As a result, even in 2024, Germany will still have hardly any fast internet, especially in rural areas. This means that no nation of artificial intelligence can be built. This also correlates with the lack of data centers. In Germany, the retailer Lidl is the only one that is building its own data center on a large scale in Germany through the Schwarz Group. But that is not nearly enough. In addition, German bureaucracy and legislation pose a problem. It is no coincidence that Meta has decided not to publish its latest Llama models in Europe, and that Apple is not publishing its Apple Intelligence either. The effort to align the models with data protection regulations is too great and too expensive. Furthermore, Europe prohibits the training of models with European usage data. For Meta, publication would therefore only be expensive and of little use. The EU's AI Act was actually intended to create legal certainty for large tech companies, but in its excessive data protection, it has gone far beyond the mark. The EU's thinking, they want to be independent of the US and try not to transfer any sensitive data to the US under any circumstances. Too often, intimate secrets have already been transmitted to the friend in the West. The logical consequence, Germany is simply developing its own AI model. The company Aleph Alpha, which was recently able to raise $500 million in capital, mainly from the Schwarz Group, invested this in the development of a data protection compliant model. However, the development and training of AI models requires so much capital that $500 million is just a drop in the ocean. Which is why OpenAI is now changing from a nonprofit to a for-profit legal form. Although Alpha has now published its own model, as far as can be seen, it is mediocre at best, and the German authorities are so poorly equipped that the models would not be usable anyway. This is particularly due to the fact that federalism complicates bureaucracy in Germany. This is because sovereignty over IT infrastructure lies with the federal states and municipalities. The federal government does not specify anything in this regard. And due to a lack of money, the municipalities regularly choose the cheapest software providers, but their data simply cannot communicate with the applications of other authorities. This is a problem that has cost Germany dearly, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. The payment of the energy allowance has been repeatedly delayed because the data from the federal states simply could not be used. Most authorities simply cannot communicate with each other and exchange data. They cannot be read. That is why most data is still sent by paper letter or fax to this day. All software used throughout the country would have to be standardized, but the constitutionally guaranteed federalism prevents that. This problem has been thoroughly analyzed in the book Nations Construction Sites, German, Baustellen der Nation, should anyone be interested in doing further research in this regard. But infrastructure also includes classic roads and railways. The German rail network is now sadly famous for its susceptibility to problems. Only 60% of German long-distance traffic is on time. This is a disaster for companies that depend on punctual deadlines, and for German employees alike. As soon as you have to drive more than 100 kilometers, it is therefore worthwhile to regularly switch to the car in order not to get stranded in some train station with the train. But the roads are also becoming increasingly dilapidated. Billions would have to be invested, which the German state is not willing to invest. The result is constant traffic jams. A general renovation of the German autobahns would be necessary. Instead, attempts are being made to patch up the partial. At the same time, however, more and more road sections are being closed because of the risk of collapse. However, the problem of electricity is added to this, which permeates all other problem areas. Electricity is expensive in Germany. It is among the most expensive worldwide. In addition to gas, Germany was dependent on foreign countries for electricity production for a long time. Electricity was purchased from France. The nuclear power plants there produced reliably and cheaply. Or uranium was purchased from Kazakhstan. The country's own electricity was mainly generated by burning coal. Under the leadership of Chancellor Merkel, Germany wanted to become more independent in electricity production. To this end, renewable energies were to be expanded. The problem: renewable energy is unreliable and can overload the grid when production is high, e.g., a lot of solar energy on sunny days. At the same time, in the urgent desire for energy self-sufficiency, the decision was hastily made to phase out nuclear energy. The result: nationwide, electricity demand has increased, production has stalled, and prices have exploded. The phase-out of nuclear power was ultimately one of the biggest problems. The Green Party has further accelerated this by demanding that all new heating systems in detached houses run on heat pumps, which place an additional burden on the electricity grid. In the context of bringing the CO2 balance into neutrality, all reasonable decisions have been subject to this dictate. Thus, electricity production is now also a serious problem for industry and continues to burden the business location. Especially if Germany should nevertheless decide to build its own data centers on a large scale, the price of electricity will burden companies. And Intel, which recently wanted to build a large chip factory in Germany, Marburg, has also taken a step back, albeit due to its own corporate weakness. Conclusion: things are bad for Germany, bad for Europe. Germany, as an economic power in Europe, is in a deep structural crisis. The problems are multifactorial. It is not just a matter of solving one problem, but the problems are outdated industry, no focus on IT/AI, no own resources, gas, expensive electricity, crumbling infrastructure, bureaucracy, and federalism. Although federalism has its justification as an important legal instrument against autocracy and is a result of history, but in its present form, it is above all an obstacle. Besides Germany, only France has founded and subsidized a global AI company with Mistral. However, their models are trained in the US on Microsoft's Azure. What is needed now, as Mario Draghi quite rightly says, is hundreds of billions of investments in the future. Data centers, tech industry, strategic realignment of the automotive industry, and reduction of bureaucracy. Time is running out, and every year, Germany loses prosperity. Europe suffers from Germany's inaction and misunderstood conservatism mixed with blind ignorance and arrogance. I have been living in Germany all my life, and I am still shocked at how much we have remained in the 20th century. The world is moving forward. Germany is standing still. In addition, there are new global developments, such as the increasing nationalization of economies. And I haven't even mentioned the challenges posed by China yet.